illustrators, and picture book authors. Entries are open for the Storyteller's Shelf Podcast Consumer Awards. Win a cash prize, a featured interview, and more. Get your work seen, celebrated, and supported. Submit now and join the family.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Storyteller Shelf podcast. I'm Jackie here again with Theresa, and we are back for our middle grade Marvel series. And we have another special guest all the way from Egypt today, chiming in to speak with us. So without further delay, Laila, will you tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Okay, hi everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I'm Laila Rifaat, and I'm based in Cairo, Egypt. I actually grew up in Sweden, but I'm half Egyptian, and I came here in my 20s to study to Cairo and ended up staying, getting married, settling down. And I'm the author of a middle grade series, fantasy called Aliya. The first one is called Aliya to the Infinite City. The second book in the series is called Aliya Aboard the Time Train, and there's a third part coming. The third and last part is coming out in 1 month, Aliya and the Shop of Second Chances. So this is about an Egyptian girl who goes off to a time travel academy, and she meets characters from all over Egyptian history. And yeah, that's basically a very short description of what I've been up to the last 2-3 years.
That's amazing. I'm fascinated by the fact that when your book is beautiful. I love the cover, and I love that she's writing on, it's like a magic carpet, and that she does like a time traveling thing. I love stories like that. And the fact that you're also living in Egypt and Cairo, I mean, that to me is fascinating. As a youth, I was always like, I'm going to become an Egyptologist and I'm going to go into the pyramids. And that to me is like the thing, and your characters, you have her going in different adventures. So it's like an adventure story. Mm. So tying that together, if you were a superhero, what would you be, and what would your superhero name be, and why?
Oh gosh, that's really hard. Well, me and my kids and my husband, we have this game that we've been playing for, when they were younger, and then we all had superhero names, the whole family. So I think my husband was Captain Kofta. Kofta is it's like some kind of meatball. And I think I was, Captain Basala, which is the onion. And so I guess I would be Captain Basilla. This is the peas, we all had names like that. So
food is a great enough answer for us on here. Yeah. We are big foodies, and so you don't need to explain it anymore for us.
Something my husband came up with and that the kids found funny, because that's the kind of stuff they were eating every day. So
I love that though, because sometimes the best ideas you ever have are just things that came from memories and things that you do with your family. Inspiration, right, for another book who we don't know, but we'll stay tuned. So we know, of course, that you have authored a trilogy. Can you take us back in your mindset and tell us what inspired you to write for middle grade readers? And how do you tap into the perspective of this age group when you're actually writing your stories?
Well, that's a good question. And I think somehow it's about tapping into yourself as a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, or just trying to remember how you felt and what you were like, but also studying children around you. So I am fortunate enough to have kids that age myself. So I try to look at them and see how they speak, how they speak to their friends. Of course, you're trying to avoid using slang and things that are just in vogue at the moment, because that's bound to kind of be passé by the time that your book comes out. So I was given the advice not to try to do that, but just kind of on an emotional level, what are the struggles that you deal with at that time? And somehow I think we still have something of those struggles still with, we're still struggling with basically the same things, maybe with more maturity, but lack of confidence and fear of being alone, fear of abandonment, and all these things are still kind of there somehow, and we remember them. They're still so. I guess that's what I'm trying to tap into and use. But it's of course it's very useful to have children around you and kind of observe them.
I love that because I do the same thing for my own stories, like where you feel like I have children as well. And I feel like it helps to have that, creating that sort of muse in a sense that helps you to write more, write better. And if you write a chapter and you have your children there and they go, okay, what do you think about this book? Or what do you think about this part? Should I change something? I kind of have my kids peer on that as well. But was there one moment or scene from your latest middle grade book that you loved, and why does it stand out to you?
This episode of the Storyteller Show podcast is brought to you by Harney & Sons Fine Teas, a perfect companion to every story. Whether you're reading, writing, or just enjoying a quiet moment to yourself, Harney & Sons offers a beautiful selection of teas to elevate this experience. From classic blends to unique finds, every cup is crafted with care, just like the stories we love to share. Shop harney.com/discount/storyteller, and Storyteller is in all caps. Now let's get back to the show.
I know which parts I particularly like, but I'm not sure why exactly. But there's one part where Aliya has a flying carpet lesson, and she discovers that she actually is quite good at carpet flying, and she's the character who's struggling with self-confidence, and she's kind of not so good at things throughout the book. And but then she goes into this lesson, and it's like a big what you call where planes are, like hangar. Is that called a hangar? Yeah, and it's full of these carpets, and they're all snoring. They're in big stacks like that, and they're and you have to kind of, in order to get the carpet to ride, the carpet has to choose you. So you have to kind of wait until one of them kind of decides to be your carpet. So she finds this carpet in a separate room because she's inexperienced and she cannot ride with the rest of the class who are more experienced than her. So she gets to ride like another, like not as fancy carpet, and she's a bit upset about that. But anyway, she ends up mastering carpet flying. And that scene, I liked it just because it was fun to ride. It had a lot of, I could play around with the flying carpet, and I used to ride horses and ponies. And if you've ever ridden ponies in this kind of, they're quite naughty, and they would do anything to kind of get you off and, do all kinds of tricks. So I thought, why not combine that kind of characteristic with the flying carpets? So it's pretty much like a riding school, but with carpets. So it was fun to kind of think of ways in which the carpets could be naughty, and how the students had to kind of master the art by like being firm and all that stuff. So that scene I liked because it was, I guess, because it was also fun to write it.
I do know the ponies, they can be not so nice, to say the least. That's perfect inspiration for, I think, a flying carpet.
Yeah. I even thought of like giving them funny names based on like racehorses, they usually have these weird names. So the carpets are called things like Inferno and Marauder and things like that. So that was inspired me to kind of come up with the persona of the flying carpets.
That's so cool. We're going to have you come back on and chat about how that even came in your mind.
Oh God, who knows?
So we consider ourselves very fortunate to be able to speak with you because, like we said, you've at this point written more than one book. So we consider you very experienced in terms of being an author. And we would love to ask you, what's one trend, challenge, or opportunity you see in the world of middle grade literature today?
Okay, I think the challenge maybe is not so much in the actual writing of the story. Of course, it's always difficult to feel unique because, as you know, there are no new ideas, only new combinations. And to kind of, usually we end up writing things that we really love to read. And so you have to kind of keep in mind not to get too close to the other things. And often you come up with this idea and you think it's brilliant, and then you realize that someone else has written almost the same kind of thing. So that could be, I think it's can be a little bit difficult sometimes. But I think in the end, I don't worry too much about it because, again, if you combine ideas that already exist, you come up with something unique in the end anyway. I also think it's a little bit challenging that there are so many middle grade books being published, at least in the UK where my book is published. So there's this, which is great in a way, but also makes it much harder to stand out, and it makes it harder to get a contract, I guess. You really have to kind of come up with ideas that catch an agent's attention or a publisher's attention, and that, of course, is not the easiest thing. So, yeah, that's as for the challenges.
I love to bring up something. Actually, off camera, Layla and I were talking, and we were just speaking about writing and publishing. And she mentioned that there's kind of no guarantee that even though you've published previously, that even a publisher you went with before is going to accept your new manuscript. And I would love to insert an atypical question in our script, which is, Layla, do you have any advice for people on keeping up their confidence when it comes to trying to publish again?
Well, I would like to hear some advice myself, but I'll do my best to answer you. I think you just have to remember what you love about writing. I kind of call it going into my cave. That means like I'm gonna go back into my writing cave. I'm gonna cut off social media. I'm not gonna look at what everyone else is doing and all the awards they're winning and all the money that they're, because again, it gives you such a skewed view of what's going on. Like I told you, I met somebody the other day, an author who's doing really well now. But when I met him, he told me it took me 25 years to get published. And I loved his book. It's amazing. But, to reach that point, he had so much rejection before that. And that's what you don't see. And I think we all always have to, of course, there are these outliers that just send in a book and it becomes a bestseller overnight, but that's not the common thing. One has to remember how much work that goes into those successes usually. And so also being a debut author and being in a debut group has taught me that we shouldn't view each other as competition. These are allies, and to kind of celebrate each other's success, and that's really important, and to be happy for each other. So I find that children's writing, the world of children's writing is really friendly most of the time, and I love that. And that the people I've met and the friends I've made are really supportive, and that's a beautiful thing. So that's also where you can find comfort and support in groups, with other writers who know what it's like. And again, this friend that told me he spent 25 years getting rejections.
Is that the friend of yours that is from Scotland?
Yeah, but that he told me, that he spent 25 years, and I was so surprised because you think, when you read the book, and you see the success, he's had it so easy, but no, that's not true. The book is it's written in such an effortless way. And to get to that level of effortlessness, and also he's very funny without trying too hard. And that's another skill. That's another thing, like how to vibe with kids and make them laugh without being kind of, trying to make fart jokes and, this kind of stuff, being so too contrived. That's also hard, so, but behind that, there's a lot of work usually. So, yeah, did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. No, perfect. Perfect answer. And it was inspiring too, because we always see the reward at the end. We always see the happy ending for someone online. I think a lot of us just feel, when's it going to be my turn? But we forget that, yes, there are people who it takes 25 years for them to really work on their craft, or not even that. Just it's such a competitive industry that it can take you time to make the right connections and to be in front of the right audience at the right time. And there's nothing really to do but to be resilient. So I think that's perfect advice, is to be patient and to never think that you've missed a chance or it'll never happen to you, because that's not true.
Exactly. And I think it's like only another writer will understand when you say, I finally got published, and what that means. They'll be like, people who don't write, like, oh, nice, that's nice. But for you, it's like, but I climbed Mount Everest. Don't you understand? So that's why it's important to have writer friends who can kind of share your joys and your challenges with you. I think it's really important to be in a writers group of some sorts and just to kind of get to share.
I think I feel like everything you said is going through my head like, yep, like a checklist of just as a writer, you need people. And I feel like now, like, we're kindred spirits. And I hope we could take this opportunity to say we're friends, even now. I know we're far away, but I feel like, with that being said, like, I was thinking about what you're saying. I love all the advice that you've given because there's so many. There's so much to be said about having good friends. Don't compare yourself. Would you say that if you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you'd give your younger creative self?
To work more on the discipline of writing. I mean, I was very ambitious when I was young. I really knew that I wanted to write, but I would start a novel a day, and then just decide, oh, I'm not sticking with this, I'm starting something new. I mean, and I also never rewrote anything, and that was a big mistake. Like to realize that in order to develop, first of all, you need to read a lot, and I didn't do that either. I could give myself a list of things that I should have done. To read more, to read different things, and then to really finish things and to start with the discipline of writing every day, even if it's not a lot. But I think another thing that's really, really important is to show your work to other writers. They don't have to be professionals. It's enough if they're on the same level with you. But getting feedback and accepting feedback is so important. When I was starting out seriously trying to, query, and I had the Aliya book in its first draft, I was in a writing group, and that was the best thing ever. I think this is where I learned it was like a very steep learning curve because people just told me the things that weren't working with my writing. Like, your protagonist is not active enough. Your protagonist is just seeing, because I was also writing fantasy, so it's very easy to get stuck in just describing cool stuff and going to cool places. So just someone telling you, but why does this matter? What is your character doing? Why did she go there? Why are you telling me this? So these are these very basic things that you're not aware of when you're starting out. Read, write, try to have discipline, and join a writing group. That's what I would tell my younger self. Maybe I would have gotten published 20 years ago if I had done that. Who knows?
That's great advice. I think we always hear that you should read more as an author. And I know I'm not the only one who says, I need to read more. My to be read list is next to me. There's about 50 books standing there getting dusty because I think I don't have the time. But you have to make the time because this is your craft, and knowing what other people are doing is actually going to help you not just get ideas, but see what the market is like. And that's really important so that you can see how you fit into it and what you can bring and enrich, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a busy mom, but I use audiobooks because that allows me to listen while I'm cooking, listen while I'm driving, and I've realized that because of the audiobooks, I can get through like a book a week at least. Because I drive a lot, training, driving to football practice, driving to, I don't know, cooking, going shopping, and all that. So the audiobook in the car, yeah, that's perfect.
When you're reading, do you specifically choose based on your genre? As since you're a middle grade author, do you look at those books more for inspiration, or do you just do reading in general?
Well, initially I did read a lot of middle grade to learn the genre, that I was writing in. But now that I have a bit more of an understanding of the genre, I'm trying to read all kinds of books, and I get inspired by different things. Like could be anything really, because I don't want to be stuck just in middle grade. You could end up taking an idea from another kind of book and bringing it into middle grade and creating something new, unique. So I like to read different things, and I'm reading always like 5 or 6 books at once. I don't know if that's advisable, but that's kind of what I do. I'm very greedy when it comes to books. I just collect them, and I'm in a book club also with a couple of friends, and our project is to read one book from every country in the world. Yeah. So we've been to Japan, we've been to Chile, we've been to quite a lot of countries. And that also is good because then you end up reading books that you never would have read on your own. But because it's a group deciding, and there's certain criteria, I end up reading. So I think it's good to read wildly. But if you're writing, of course, in the middle grade genre, you also have to understand the conventions, I took a course in writing for children, and that also helped a lot. So I studied structure and then I read a lot of middle grade so that I could see what writers were doing and how they were structuring their stories. So in the beginning, I would say, yes, definitely. It's very important to read a lot of middle grade.
We are on our last question, so you've been a real trooper for us. But this one is hopefully a nice and easy question for you. What is one thing you'd like your readers to take away from your work or to know about you as an author?
Well, with the Aliya series, I wanted to create a world where the reader just wants to live, I was actually, of course, you always have this intention to give some kind of message, but for me, it was also about it was about entertaining. A lot of it is about entertainment. And it's because I think a fantasy entertainment is also important. It's important to be able to pick up a book and disappear into a different world. But of course, the reader should also be able to relate to the main character and kind of share the struggles and recognize themselves, and especially with my main character because she is Egyptian. I was also hoping to reach children who who are maybe from the Middle East, who might not have seen themselves represented in a fantasy novel, to be able to reach them and show them that, hey, you could also be the hero or the heroine, of a story like this. To kind of contribute to the diversity that we need in our children's literature. So that was something that I aimed for as well.
I think that's beautiful. And that I love that you said diversity and creating that and having representation for your characters. And we just want to say thank you so much for coming on our podcast today and sharing
Thank you.
your beautiful work and your inspirational and hopefully to inspire other writers. And just want to say to all of our listeners, thank you for making it this far, and make sure to check out Laila's page on our episodic calendar. That's going to have all of her information and where you can get her work and find more information about her. So again, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today.
Thank
we
you.
really
Thank
appreciate
you for
it.
inviting me. It's
Yeah.
great to be here.